Hey, ladies.
Hey
Uh,
there.
welcome, everybody, to the Poly Pimps podcast. We are here on a Thursday night, making sure we're bringing you fun and great information regarding pretty much life in general. So,
Life, baby. It's all about life.
ooh, we want to welcome to our platform Dr. Maggie. She is a sexologist, a clinical
Yes.
sexologist. So we are very, very excited that you're here with us tonight with the Polypamps. So welcome, Maggie.
Thank you. And I am very honored to be on your platform. So thanks for having me.
Yay. You know what you jumped into? Did
What I
she
jump
really
into.
tell you what we talk about here?
Yes. Actually, no. I do want to know what I jumped into. All I can
Well,
see is the poly pimps, and I'm like, that is interesting. So I love
Well,
it.
we are a different set of women because most women out here are waiting for their one true love, and we're waiting for our multiple true loves. Are we? Are we waiting? I don't think we're waiting.
We're not waiting. We're doing our thing in
We're not
our
waiting. We're not
inception.
waiting. We're out here. So,
Yes.
yeah, we're just trying to promote and educate about living life abundantly
Yes.
and building a loving community amongst lovers and friends and family and what have you. And yeah, I think we're both passionate about it in different aspects and similar aspects, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it's definitely a different type of podcast from what I've seen. I've been looking at some other poly podcasts, and they're always a man and a woman talking about their life, and especially when it comes to Black people, this is not the popular conversation. So amongst women, I have a lot of girlfriends, and they're like, "I don't know how you do it." So, what is your knowledge of polyamory?
So
Well,
my no-
maybe she should tell us like her background first, what she does, then we can get
yeah, I'd love
started.
to.
That's fine.
So, my background, I have a really interesting multi-dimensional background, as some may call it, but it's all intertwined. So, educationally, I have a bachelor's in nursing, and I'm still working actively as a nurse. And then I went back and got my master's as an LPC, which is a licensed professional counselor. So I'm a therapist, but my ultimate interest is sexology.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
went back and got a doctorate in clinical sexology. And within my studies or throughout my studies, of course, as a clinical sexologist, you need to be equipped book wise with all the different levels of things that entails sexology or sexuality, sexual practices, or even religion. I remember when I was telling my mom that I hadn't taken my religion class because I had surgery during that time and I needed to make it up. She's like, why don't you stay focused? Why are you taking a religion class? And I'm like, theology is a part of it. This is actually a part of my study. So, as far as poly, I've learned through my studies about poly, but then in my practice, I've also had poly clients. So, I'm
Nice.
poly friendly and poly aware. I would say I'm kink aware. And even with regards to tonight's topic, I was very clear because I have much respect for the community, whether it be swingers, which I've interacted with, the poly community or the BDSM community. I have so much respect for the community. I never want to say I'm an expert because I am not a member of the community. But because of my interest, I have a special interest. I maintain some level of education and I also learn a lot through the clients I see in my private practice.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
is awesome.
Yeah.
So, um, my question just left me. Sorry.
So I'll start with the one I was on, which was What is your experience with polyamory? Is it through like personal or through clients?
I would say it's predominantly through client. I personally am poly minded. I'm also very, it's a little bit hard to navigate some of these platforms, Sky. I attend a lot of workshops. I visit dungeons, but I'm very cautious about playing because I never know who is out there and who could be a potential client or who has been a potential client, depending on the platform. So I tend to be a little bit cautious. I'm poly minded because right now I'm single and I may potentially have one, two, whatever comes
Honey,
my way.
bring those
I'll keep
numbers.
that on the
Bring
down
those
low for
numbers.
now because I don't know who's watching. No, no,
Yeah,
no, I'm fine. But in all seriousness, no, yeah. So I don't want to say I am poly, although I am open because I understand there's some distinction because somebody may have an interest or maybe talking to multiple people, but they don't all know that you're talking to multiple people. And
right,
part of being in the community is the understanding that there's an openness about your interactions with others. That
Mhm.
hasn't been my case because I have not been able to find a partner who is open, although they say they are, because I approach the situation as such. I'm
That
like, do you understand that if I'm talking to you right now and tomorrow I'm out and you see me with someone else, please be cordial and say hello and keep it moving, right? And
that
that's what I do in dating apps or when I whatever. And they're like, oh, heck yeah. Oh, yeah. We're all for it. It's all good.
until they see
Until,
you, huh?
until they actually get you. And when they actually get you, they're like, oh, crap. I'm not down for that. I don't
Do
know
that.
how to deal with that. Baby girl, you're going to be all mine. I'm going to make sure you don't have to have anybody else.
We
So,
are also
we
used.
already know. We already know this story.
So to answer your question, as a result, I feel like I'm more or less poly minded. I can't say I am poly because I understand there are different levels and I'm not at any of them because none of my partners are willing to be open to accept the fact that I may be with somebody else at any given time. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Totally.
that is
Totally.
I find it interesting. I didn't think about that part because you say you're a therapist and you have to be mindful of the spaces that you navigate, especially those very personal, intimate spaces where you can have either potential clients or past or patients, should I call them.
Mhm.
I didn't even really think that far out
Yeah.
for you because you guys have to be very cautious. Can you even be friends with your patients?
No,
Okay.
no, no.
So
So
there-
I have a wonderful client of mine, and we're still in contact because they moved away, and they my clients tend to just send me an email every so often or text, just to keep me up to date as to what they're doing. And he was in a poly relationship. He also navigates some of the platforms, and we happen to both. And I'm like, oh, so have you been to Frolicon? And I'm like, yeah, I absolutely love Frolicon, and he had an interest in going to Frolicon, and I was like, "Ooh,
ooh, I
so
can go.
listen here. If you ever see me at Frolicon, do not even approach me because let us say he's with another person, right? There's
Mhm.
there's an element of privacy that's required. So
Mhm.
even when I go to events, let's say I'm at a wedding, we're not even talking about poly or any of these situations, right? I'm at a wedding and I meet a client there. We have a mutual person
Mhm.
and they see me. They approach me and say, oh, hey, Dr. Maggie. Or it's like, it's usually at weddings, people are like, oh, who do you know? The bride or the groom?
Yeah.
Well, and or how did you guys meet? Like if somebody approached me,
Mhm.
I have a responsibility. We have to have that conversation. If I run into you in public, how do you want to be approached? Do you even want to be approached? What do you tell people? Because I personally am never going to go up to a client because that's a violation of their privacy. Because if a person asks, how do you know them? They may feel obligated to share that.
For sure.
So
Okay.
Similarly, in different platforms, when I go to different places, to the dungeons, to clubs, or whatever, I am definitely not participating half the time because of that. And
Okay.
if I do encounter a client that I've already had an established relationship with, we have to talk about it and see how do you navigate that.
Question. Are you currently taking clients now? Are you
Yeah,
taking new clients? And where are
I
you
am.
based out of?
I am currently, so a lot of my, I do a lot online. I do telehealth primarily throughout the week. I do telehealth in the evenings. And then I have an office in Berkeley Lake slash Norcross. So I'm currently, my office is in Norcross, but most of my practice is through telehealth during the week. A lot of people who want to be seen face to face, which I absolutely love, will be seen on Saturdays at the Norcross office in
Okay, so
Berkeley.
we have to get your put your information in the comments so people who want um poly people or it doesn't matter, right? Doesn't
It
matter.
does not matter. I have such an array of clients, and it keeps things fun and exciting. Oh my gosh, if I could begin to tell you the stories because we wouldn't share names,
Oh, you
I would
will.
all night. It's just so fun. I love my clients. I love what they bring to the table. I love learning. Um, I just love this whole what some may call strange community. Like you go to a dungeon and then you see somebody with a beard but also have a penis and boobs, and it's just like so fascinating and
So wild.
I
Okay.
find it
wild. It's just
fascinating.
wild.
Yeah. So, Maggie, let me ask you. Now that we're friends, you cannot be my therapist.
No, it's called dual.
Ooh.
I have to choose. I
It's
don't want.
like almost like did you see how quickly I say that?
She
It's a
said
dual
no.
relationship. Now,
Yes.
if I was a coach, it would be different, but I'm
Okay.
licensed. I'm licensed and I have an obligation to the boards, and I have an ethical obligation. And part of it is dual relationships. So let us say you're in therapy with me
Mm-hmm.
and you don't like the way things are going, it's not always going to be a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're going to encounter things in therapy. We talk about, taking up the layers or peeling the layers.
Mm-hmm.
Things get really rough before they get better sometimes. So, bottom line, you don't like how things are going, right? It can have an impact on our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So, that doesn't work. I also cannot see people who are very close to you,
Okay.
unfortunately.
So let's get into it.
Well,
Let's
hey, let's say hi to our people. Hey, Dee. Hey, Jacques. Hey, Danny. Good to see you guys. Thank you for joining. And yes, we're gonna get into it. And you guys remember, ask questions. We do have a question already.
also
Dylan said, "What is your specialty?" Sorry, I just joined.
We're talking about me as a
Yes.
therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, as a clinical sexologist, we have a couple of different little niches. Mine specifically is sexuality, relationship, and intimacy. And when I talk about sexuality, it's anything with regards to sexual orientation, alternative lifestyles, similar to what we're talking about. Um, so, yeah, just anything with regards to sex and sexuality, and I do a lot with clients, with couples therapy. I also am not certified, but when you get extra training, so I'm certified as a premarital and marital counselor. So before you get married, come and see me. We'll do some couples counseling, and I'm also able to give you a certificate to give you some, take a little bit of money off of your the money that you pay to get your license, so that kind of thing.
got it.
But I have a special interest in um, one of my special interests is I don't want to say elderly, mature adults and sexuality is pretty
Okay.
huge for me, because with women, we encounter so many different things as we age that
Mm-hmm.
can interfere with our pleasure. And I don't want to say with sex because, we can get pleasure from various things. And
Exactly.
even with men, and a lot of times people put age like an age limit to having great sex, which is such a myth. Because, guys, I can't begin to tell you 88-year-olds who are having amazing sex, y'all. So it doesn't stop until
That's
you.
gonna be me.
We heard. We heard. I'm gonna do that.
So, for
That's gonna be
those
me.
of you who are
Um,
young, if you are open, expect to have pleasure throughout your mature ages or mature years until you actually, whatever, I don't want to say are below grounds, but that's a possibility.
okay,
Yes.
so my first question is what exactly or how would you exactly define BDSM? How do you define that?
So, BDSM is a variety of erotic practices or role play, and that typically involve the acronyms that we're talking about, the B, the D, and the S and the M, and it truly defined the practice, as well as the role play. So, what is BDSM? The letters actually have double duty. They're multifaceted and they do double duty. So the B and the D stands for bondage and discipline. The D and the S stand for dominance and submission. So you can see that the D has a
Mhm.
double duty, double meaning. And then you have the S and the M, which stands for sadism and masochism.
Got it.
Mhm.
And I'm happy to
Right.
define what each stand for or how they enter, how you define those, like
Yes,
each of
please.
them, the bondage, the discipline, the dominance. And again, as an educator, y'all, I did put my little cheat notes here, so I'm gonna be
Yes.
looking down to make sure I'm
Absolutely.
providing the proper information. So
Yes.
if I may, please, and the other thing too, just to let you know, previously you may have heard sadomasochism. So in my days, like when I say in my days because I got trained in 2011, and let me tell you, so much has changed in those years. Things just kept changing. The way we were taught and the words we were taught continuously are changing and evolving. So
Mhm.
you may hear sadomasochism, which is now preferred in the BDSM community. They do prefer sadism and masochism. So, in
Okay.
terms of bondage, bondage usually involves like a physical kind of restraint. So, your partner will restrain you with tools like ropes, handcuffs, blindfolds, and it's all about instilling trust and the thrill of trust, that comes with it, as well as sexual tension. So, that would entail the bondage part. The discipline part in BDSM, there are rules and they are mandated. There are so many rules, people may be like, that's just too much. But let me tell you, if you're not abiding by the rules and if you don't appreciate and come to even fall in love with the rules, you may probably not have safe play, which is part of what we're going to talk about tonight. So, in discipline, so it's basically rules are essential, right? Part of BDSM. So, when a rule follower breaks the rules, they are then disciplined. It's really
Mhm.
just very
Like getting
simple.
spanked and
Usually
everything.
like a whipping or spanking or flogging, or it could also be disciplined psychologically, not just physically, but there's
Right.
also some psychological punishments like erotic humiliation, which we can talk about a little bit more later. Dominance is the person who is exercising the control in a dominant or submissive. Well, it's usually like a big D. When you see it in writing, it's going to be a capital D slash and a small s,
Okay.
because the person who is dominant is the person who is in control, and they are the people who will inflict punishment, um, or they basically are the ones who take control in the relationship in a dominant submissive relationship. Usually a dominant person is called a dom,
Okay.
and I also hear a female dom referred to as a dominatrix.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
So submission is the counterpart to dominance, right? So submissives or subs, as we refer to them, are the people who consensually relinquish, voluntarily relinquish control to the dominant partner. And they are happily accepting their punishments when they don't play by the rules.
Okay.
So, and as you can see, I'm putting emphasis on certain words because
Mm-hmm.
it's really important.
Okay.
Sadism, a sadist is someone who enjoys inflicting pain or humiliation on others. And masochism is the one who is willing to receive the pain. So they are the willing partner to the sadist, and they enjoy being the person who are receiving the pain, who are at the end of the pain. And so that's your BDSM acronym. However, let's not forget, like everything else, it's not totally linear, right? So
Right.
you also have your switch. And the switch would be the person, because you, even though you have assigned roles, and there are some people who are hardcore. I have a friend who is a hardcore sadist, like totally hardcore sadist. But then you have your people who are willing to sometimes be a dom and at other times be a sub. So a person who's willing to take different roles can be considered a switch. And basically, they will mess up the role. They can play depending on the scene or the partner that they're with. So it's not one that people literally, it's not part of the acronym, but I think it's quite important to talk about switch because not everybody is a complete dumb and not everybody is a complete sub.
I'm
Gotcha.
glad you said that because I've always considered myself a switch when it comes to kinks because I love playing, and I because I may wake up today and be like, yes, sir. Sure, I'll do this. I'll do that. I can be a real brat as well. I have some people I just can't help it. That brat, like it comes out and I can't turn it off. But typically, like I'm not much of a sub, but I have little moments. But like I said, today I can come and be like, yes, sir, no, sir, no problem, yada yada. And then tomorrow I'm like, yeah, get on that bed and like you're gonna get blindfolded, restrained, all of
And
it.
beat the hell up.
I'm in charge. Well, so I'm not really into pain because I don't like pain being inflicted on myself. A little bit of flogging and things like that are okay for me. And I think it has to do with past trauma, just watching,
Mhm.
um, physical violence, especially on women in my past. So, like, I'm very, very sensitive to physical pain. So it's like if it hurts, I'm gonna give you that look, so you're gonna know, like, don't try that again. So,
Right.
but yeah, I totally. But we don't talk about switch a whole lot in the
Mhm.
BDSM
Mhm.
setting. But yeah,
Mhm.
I am a full switch.
I think I could be a switch as well. I think I would probably fall under submissive more so than anything else. But the tying me up and beating me on any level is just never been attractive to me. I just don't even get it. But um hey, that's why they call it a kink. For folks out there, there is the link that I posted, the StreamYard.com link. If you're interested in jumping into the call, whether audio or video, you can do so. Or if you just want to post your comments in the chat, that's fine as well. And we do have a bunch of comments. I don't know if you've
Yeah,
seen them pop up. Mixie, you want to jump on them?
yeah, let's do that.
All righty. Let's see. Where should we pop up?
Hey, everybody. We're saying hello to everybody who joined. So if you joined a little bit later, we're saying hey.
All right. Would it be wrong for me to love both women?
It's
What
never
about all
wrong.
women?
Just let
You're
them know.
never wrong. Loving can never be wrong. How is there ever a wrong in loving? That makes sense.
Just be open and
Honest.
transparent. That's all you need, sir.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
Farrah
Farrah
said,
says,
"Here, Dr. Maggie."
"Hi, Dr. Maggie.
Hey, Sarah.
Sex for life.
Yes.
I
Sex
have
for life.
BDSM items, but I can't find women who want to play along."
There are so many different places where you can find BDSM communities. So,
Fet life on
first
one
and
side.
foremost, the one of the main thing I came in here for is to talk about BDSM safety or kink safety, right?
We're gonna
So when
jump
I
in.
saw that, I immediately was like, well, you can find places. But first, what I would want to know is when you say BDSM items, what do you mean? And
Mm,
secondly, are you do you feel
trained.
that you can utilize those items safely? Do you
Right.
know how to use them? So
Yes.
that's
Right.
quite important. And
So
then you can find a woman whom you can play with because the biggest part of this is trust. You need to have a partner who trusts that you're not going to hurt them physically or emotionally. So, yeah, it's just so important. So,
Good
I mean,
answer.
that
Good
didn't quite
answer.
answer your question. However, you might want to elaborate a little bit on that. But there
Yes,
are so many different platforms where you can find
absolutely.
people who are interested in kink play, um, and various types of kink plays. And when I love hearing about items because can I tell you, in your kitchen, you can start right there with all your little tools, especially for sensation play. Oh my gosh. There's just so many little fun things you can do in terms of sensation play, starting with the things at home. So, anyways,
Wow.
let's
nice.
keep going.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you have to adopt every single part if you are into BDSM?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I'm not sure what you mean by BDSM in every little part. I apologize.
Like
But
everything you explain, you don't have
yeah,
to do everything. Like some people want to do it.
absolutely
Yeah.
not. When it comes to BDSM, you have some things that are very light play and you have hardcore. You do have people who actually live the lifestyle on a day to day basis. One of the things we didn't talk about is masters and slave, which is part of that M. So it would be like the capital M slash small slave again. The top and the bottom always is like the lowercase letter, right? So in
Mhm.
terms of masters and slaves, there are very well known people who have been masters and slave where they live that life on a day to day basis. So that is the community that is like this is their everyday lifestyle, right? And then you have those of us who dip it and dabble in it. You do it on the weekends. You either just do it at home. You don't go to play parties. This is not your everyday life. So there are different levels of being involved in BDSM. And not only in terms of the level, like you don't have to do this as a daily lifestyle, but there are also different levels in terms of it doesn't always include pain and stuff like that because we hear about it and we think pain and pleasure principles. That's not quite always the case. You have very light BDSM, for example, what we just talked about, sensation play. Sensation play doesn't always include pain. In fact, it typically does not. So that's when you're using things like your feather, or you're using just like think about the pizza cutter, right?
Mhm.
And just rolling
Yeah,
that on your body without a very
Without
sharp
slicing.
edge. So
pressure. Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't include that kind of thing. So I hope that answers your question. No, you don't have to be involved in every aspect of it, and there are various levels. The key is educating yourself, see what works for you, what turns you on, what pushes your button, what makes you tick, and that's
Right.
the basis of it. And then also making sure that you're talking to your partner and you are consensually agreeing to whatever you all decide to play with.
Right.
Nice.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Jacques says, I'm not there yet. As a black man, I got a fear of being restrained. Now, when you said master and slave, I'm thinking this is not a black thing because, there's certain things that black people just do not do. We're not going to do a masters and slave game. I'm thinking, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm
So
wrong.
I am trying, oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember her name. She is a woman that I fell in love with. And right now I'm having a brain fog. Melina, oof. Okay, so example. She got a lot of slack for this master and slave. She is a very well known public figure in the BDSM community. She's a slave. Her husband is actually a very well known musician or composer, classical art composer. They
Okay.
were featured in a magazine one time. Oh my gosh, I wish I could have time to Google it, but nonetheless, let's
I'll
keep it
Google
moving. Melina, what is her last name? So this is a black woman. She is beautiful. I totally fell in love with her. She got a lot of slack because she is a slave. She
Mm,
is a slave. And of course, in terms of slaves, she is a willing slave to this white man.
it.
So, of course, just as you said, Sky, that was a
that's
really
a lot of
hard,
controversy.
that is really hard for anybody to grasp. It's really, really hard, right? When you think about being a black woman,
The history.
being,
Hmm.
however, it works for her. And the benefits that it brings her was was amazing. It also was freeing for her. We have to understand a lot of the times when people take on these roles, even in terms of dom and subs, ironically, when you are a sub, you are the person who is most in control.
Right.
When
I've
you
heard
are a
of
slave, you are the person who is most in control.
that. Hmm.
So in the role play, you have your master, but don't forget, in most of these settings, in most of these scenes, acts, role play, however you want to phrase it, the person who is the bottom, the sub, is usually the person who set the precedence of what they want. They determine what their boundaries are, what their limits are. They choose their safe words. They determine when to stop and act, and they determine what they want and don't want, right?
Hmm.
So, in a
And that's
way,
why I feel like education and awareness are very important in those kind of settings. Because if you don't know, because I think a lot of people, when they hear master and slave, they think that this person can do any and everything to them and they have no say whatsoever. But if you're
mhm,
not educated, you will fall to, to abuse. That's why
yeah,
people who are interested in any lifestyle, I feel like, should definitely do the work, which most people don't want to do before they dive into something. They just want to be on the surface and not do anything. You got to do
yeah,
the work, do your research, educate yourself so you know what you can and cannot do. Safe.
exactly, exactly. And for that reason, if I can just jump into this is so important, right? The BDSM non negotiable is consent. Consent, consent, consent. One author cited that safe, sane, and consensual is the bedrock ethics of BDSM. And I could not
Mhm.
agree more.
Yes.
BDSM is all about power and control, it's power play. And so these ethics are in place to bring awareness to the potential, just like you just talked about, me too, the potential misuse or abuse of that power. And so to help those who are interested in, in becoming, in taking part of the BDSM community, or even the ones who are seasoned players, it really is something that puts it in place to make you feel more comfortable to test the limits because you understand that there is an ethic behind it all. It's all about communication, just like in the poly community. There's
Exactly.
no way you can be polyamorous without having a lot of thought. There's no way you can be a swinger without having a lot of conversation. Like in
Yep.
any of these alternative lifestyles, communication, 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 cannot emphasize that enough. Communication is key.
Okay.
Safety is key, and making safety a priority. And when we talk about safety, we're not just talking about physical safety, but emotional safety. So in terms of the masters and slaves, you have already determined what you want to do, what you will do, most likely may do, and what you absolutely will not do.
Yeah.
And
And
you
since
set the
we
pace, you set the precedence of how you want this relationship to look like.
since we're
Um,
there, how about we talk about aftercare?
Oh, absolutely.
that was on my
Absolutely.
list.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It's all good.
Oh, what this guy say?
It's on her
I,
list too.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, we can jump to aftercare again. What does that mean? What
Right.
does that
yeah,
mean?
what does
When we
that
talk
mean?
about aftercare, what does that mean? So, because a lot of the activities that take place in kink play can and, and evoke pain, physical and emotional pain, it is so important that not only after you play, but even during play, that you're continuously checking in, particularly if you are the Dom, you have a responsibility to continuously check in with your sub to ensure that they are okay, to
Yes.
ensure that they still feeling safe. And
Within the
when the
home.
scene is over, typically, like you will find that the dom comes and wrap up their hands around their sub, they stroking their back, they're stroking their head, they're talking to them, they're calming them down, they're making sure that they are feeling okay. And it's like, I don't know. It's just like it's like a major hug, a wonderful hug, both physically and emotionally. Even as I'm talking about it, I just want to hug
It
myself.
is
I can
needed.
think about one particular scene that I watched, and it was just so lovely. She was being whipped, and it's hard. We're not just talking about flogging. Whipping is
Mm,
pretty intense,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And people can, they get wells and stuff like that. So part
Mhm.
of that aftercare with whipping would be to make sure you put a towel over them, because now think about you're being whipped. You're human, even though
Right.
your level is pretty high, right? You're getting whooped. That is intense. And so you
Yes.
may shiver. You may think about all these things, what your body's going through. So what do
Mhm.
you want to do? You want to make sure that you're calming the person down. So get a nice warm blanket, put it over your partner's back, find them a chair, because frequently when you're being whipped, I mean, here I am, like I'm making this, can't see me, but you have the wheels and you have all these different other apparatuses that people use while whipping, right? So
Mhm.
you take them down, you sit them down, you put a towel over their back, you stroke them, you just make sure that they feel safe. If you have had some sort of kink play during sex, cuddle. When you're done, don't just walk away.
Right.
Cuddle with them, cuddle
Right.
with your partner. Again, it's really an opportunity to make your partner feel loved, secure, and safe. It is such an essential part of play that once you are done, that you just don't walk away, that you
Mhm.
ensure that your partner is feeling loved and secure and safe.
Okay.
Did
Thank
that
you.
explain that?
Yes, that was perfect.
All
Um,
right. So we got a whole bunch of comments. Where are we?
we were at
Um, Kaim said, Jock, would you allow someone you fully trust to restrain you, knowing no harm would come to you? Marcus says, do I have to allow the females to do anal to me? I was told by a poly female that's part of the lifestyle. That's like
that's
bullshit.
shenanigans.
That's
Fuckery.
shenanigans. That's the same.
Fuckery.
That sounds like bullshit.
No,
And some
no.
people say they're poly,
Right.
and they're
Mhm.
poly in quotes.
Right.
Now, poly doesn't mean that they're even involved in BDSM. So, how on
Exactly.
earth are you
That's what
going
I'm
to make a
saying. And
statement
it's
like
like
that
people
is
just
a
have these
must?
titles and they don't even have any information. They haven't even read a book. They haven't read one book.
Yeah.
It's part of,
Um,
let's say basically this is a person who enjoys penetrating men, and they are utilizing this platform to say this is part of what
This
you
is
need
what
to
it
do.
is.
So learn again that again, educate yourself, educate yourself, educate yourselves. That is
Yeah.
really the key. And don't forget, when it comes to BDSM, the key word is consent, consent, consent.
There
If
are
it's
a
not
lot of
something that you consent and agree to, it's an absolute no. Period.
there are a
Yeah.
lot of resources out there, people. You find what you
Plenty.
need. Just Google and the list will come on for you. Educate yourself.
Right.
So I had a friend who had a dom, and she would tell me a little bit because I was like, "Oh, how does that work?" And she basically, she was the sub, he was the dom, and basically he would call her and tell her he's coming over to see her. I can't, in my mind, it
Keep
doesn't
going, keep
compute
going.
in my mind. Like I just don't get it. But they like it basically was a physical relationship, and she didn't get anything out of it. I was like, what are you getting from this? What are you really getting from this? Um, I didn't get it. Like maybe I was missing something. She's like, I love it, but I I couldn't see it and I couldn't understand it. So I didn't get it. I was like, I don't understand anything about what is going on here. And I was like, are you feeling fulfilled? Are your needs being met? Are you satisfied? Are you being satisfied? Are you able to express that you're not being satisfied? Or how can you be more satisfied? Like, where is this? Like, this Dom sub thing is not balanced to me at all. So I'm not sure why anyone would sign up for it. Even though, like I said, I could do submissive things, but I can't do all the submissive things, but I could do some stuff. But in general, I could just tell you from where I sit as a poly woman, BDSM is not attractive to me at all. Like I am intrigued by it, not at all interested in being tied up or restrained in any way. I feel like just the thought of that feels like a panic attack to me.
Mhm.
Um, and I am an Aries, and so if someone tries to hit me, they are going to get the fire. Like I'm going to transform into like Mighty Morphin Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. I don't know what, but yeah, I
So
can't even.
don't forget, Sky, it's completely consensual. It has
It
to be
is, but I can't
completely
consent to it. I can't even
consensual.
think about it like that. I'm
And
just
when you,
like,
it
what?
depends. So let me say to you, so it varies. It's not just about pain. Keep
Right.
that in mind. It's not all about pain. There are so many variations of kink play. You
Right,
may
but
be engaged.
here's the
Mhm.
part I don't connect. I get there's different levels to it, right? What I don't understand is why is it why are these things considered erotic and sexual and sensual?
Oh,
How does that
okay.
how does
Great
that
question.
match?
Great
Okay.
question. And just even just a very brief, simple answer, right? Well, first, let me give you a simple answer, and then we're going to talk about the same part of the ethics with regards to your friend, and why that's not okay. So, the answer to why is that okay, like why is that erotic, has a Dom person, it feels very empowering. So, assuming in my normal life, I didn't have any sense of power. I am somebody who feels like people just don't see me. I'm not I'm not noticed. I'm being overlooked in my job or at home. I go to the dungeon and I take on the role of a dom. That is so empowering, and psychologically it can be very helpful to me. On the other hand, you have your sub, who is your exec. They have so many responsibilities. They are at work, and so they're the president of a company, right? And what I'm telling you is partially true. I'm just not making it up, because those are some of the people that you might encounter. So you have your exec, you have your judges, you have people who have so many responsibilities on their mind, on their head. And so they just don't want that. This is not what I want in my. So when I come to the bedroom or when I come into my private space, I want to relinquish that power because it is extremely freeing for me not to have to make decisions, for me to have to somebody whom I can trust to just take over and just carry on whatever task I tell them to do because
Mhm.
you negotiate that first.
Right.
And then they take it because I trust them. Now I'm just free to be and I don't have to make any decisions. That is too empowering, but it's so freeing. So, that being said, it is hard to comprehend, but the psychological benefits, in fact, there are, and there are so many research out there that shows that there are psychological benefits to kink play, to BDSM. So, what we're really talking about is the act, the play, um, just the mindset that goes behind it all can have some psychological benefits.
I totally
I don't
understand.
know. And it's not to get anybody interested, but to
Right.
help you understand and
Yeah.
appreciate where some people may be coming from. And I'm not saying that's the way it is for every person who gets involved into BDSM or kink play. But for some, there is a lot of psychological benefit.
I wanted to mention, well, to ask, does it always involve sex?
No.
Okay. And
And when we're talking about sex, we're talking about penetrative sex, right? Or
penetrate
even oral or anything like that.
all
Not
of it.
always. No.
Okay. Because a lot of people don't know that, you can be into BDSM and or have a kink and not have to sleep with the person, because sometimes there are some dominant and submissive situations that don't even involve sex. It's all about the
Power
enjoyment.
play.
Yeah,
Keep
the
in mind, it's about the power and control, and it's a power play. And power play does not necessarily equate to sex or sexual penetration.
exactly. And I feel like another thing we didn't touch on when it comes to the safety of it is having a contract when you into those spaces.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. So, the contract is a verbal contract, but a lot of times, particularly with flogging, I took a class with I can't remember her name, but the madam. So we did role play, and we did switch, but for each person, and she strongly encouraged that before we started the flogging, we had to put what our absolute yes, you can do this is, what you might be open to. Let's try it, and if I don't like it, I'll use my safe word, and what your absolute no is. So you had all three written down. She even went as far as having us use tapes. So, for example, there was one white woman
Hmm.
um, preparing a scene with a black woman, right? And because we're in a class, they're strangers. This probably would have been negotiated long ago. But one of the things that she was like, okay, I know with black women and white people, don't touch my hair kind of thing, right? So even though I'm going to stroke you and, provide some care during, it was like, is it okay to touch your hair? One girl was like, it's absolutely not okay to touch my hair. Just don't do it at all. There was another person who had an injury in her leg. So there was a red tape that we put in that area where it's like, make sure when you're flogging, you avoid that area at all cost. Even though you try not to flog in certain areas because they're so sensitive, my partner at the time, it was his neck. He had an injury to the neck. So no matter what we did, I should always avoid his neck. So things like that is very clear. The contract is very clear. And so it's not just for flogging, it could be for anything else, particularly with impact play. You
Mm.
do want to have a verbal, and I personally agree with the written contract. And when I talk about impact play, it's the kind of things that you would do that would inflict pain for the most part.
Okay. Thank you for
Right.
that.
Farah says, give us some examples.
Examples of,
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Now,
okay,
next.
so examples of kink play. So before I go into examples of kink play, Sarah, Sky had mentioned something that I do want to talk about this in terms of sanity, or, in terms of the ethics. And when we talked about sane, we're talking about sanity. So it's the concept of emotional safety that is absolutely critical for responsible BDSM exploration. So, in the case of your friend, Sky, it would be so important that this person identify, or you do some introspection, really, and ask themselves, am I doing this because I enjoy it? Or am I doing this out of obligation to my partner? Is it something I'm doing because I fear losing this partner because that's what they're into? And if your answer is yes to the obligation part, please, by all means, do some introspection, because this is probably not the best partner for you. Your partner
Mm,
should understand and agree that if this is not something you like and you're not getting pleasure out of, then this is not for you. It's just not appropriate.
so
You know
I
what
was
I mean?
reading, I was reading something about, so when we talk about kink life, dominant and submissive, someone wrote on one of those groups that the same dominant submissive kink applies to marriages, where a lot of men want to dominate and be the dominant one, and the women want to be the submissive one. And they said that's a kink. And it just blew my mind because I never really looked at it like a kink. I literally have always seen dominant submissive relationships as standard traditional
It
relationships.
is. It is.
But I never put it under a fetish kink thing. And now that I see it like that, I'm like kind of like, wow. Because
So
it's a
here's the thing. Here's the thing. I hear what you're saying, and I see where they're going with this. However, however, keep in mind some of our keywords: consent, agreed upon. You have the
right.
right to say no and to say stop. I don't want to be dominated, and you have to have the person respect you. So, part of the sanity part that we were just talking about is that you are only engaged in what feels safe, and that you feel that you are respected in. So, not just safety, but people have to respect your limits, your boundaries. Our society and the societal norm when it comes to marriages, and they use the Bible inaccurately, to say man rules over woman, because we are in a patriarchal society.
That
In a situation such as that, we did not have a choice. In BDSM, it's all about choosing. You choose to be a sub. You choose to be bottom. You choose to be the person who's receiving pain, who is the slave or whatever. In a husband and wife relationship where the man dominates her and uses his power in an abusive manner. And it doesn't necessarily mean that he's hitting her, but if he has the financial control and that threatens her, if he has the whatever other control and it threatens her because she can't do without, that is not BDSM, because there is no consent, there's no feeling of safety, there's no feeling of security. And that when that is lacking, we can't put it under the BDSM umbrella. Does
got
that
it.
make
I
sense?
love it. I love
We
it.
have so many questions and so many comments. Let's go through the comments first.
Oh, okay, quickly to answer. I'm not sure what Farah was asking about in terms of examples. So I would love for her to come back and put in what she means. Are we giving examples to something we talked about or examples of different kind of kink plays, which there are so many. And I did come prepared to talk about utilizing certain ones safely, some of the basics, but
Right.
there are so many, Farah. So please put it back because I'm not quite sure what you're asking about.
Great. Next, we got Marcus says, see, that's
See, that's what the lady
that's
told me.
what
I don't do
told-
backside play.
Marcus, exactly. Don't let anybody fool you, okay?
No.
um, I am dumb because I'm afraid the female will go to places I don't like.
What does that
You don't
mean?
do something out of fear, sir.
Right. You do something out of consent.
Yes. um, let's see. Red bones, like sky juice, have to be careful with the pizza cutter. The super at the job may get concerned over the choke marks.
Very good.
So
All
that is true. That is true. That can be an issue. But you know what? To each his own. You are in your own world. This is your safe space. And if you choose to get whipped and you have, marks all over your body, keep in mind, first of all, those are love marks. Those are parts of what you
some
do.
people wear them
Because can I
proudly.
tell you, sometimes we get these love bites, as we call them, like young ones do hickeys, even
Ickies.
though sometimes it can hurt, right?
I love
When you
it.
start to look at it and touch it, or you feel a little pain here from the love bites, it's a reminder of the amazing time that you had. So,
Big Sky is blushing. She's so vanilla. I like to say that.
Sky is vanilla. Okay, that will make her blush.
I love hickeys. I literally, I still ask for hickeys, and everybody's just like, "What is your fascination with hickeys?" I'm like, I don't know. I just love them because later on, I like to just like play with them. It's one of
I'm
my.
not all the way vanilla. Let's be clear here, but
Oh,
that's
all
okay.
right. Please educate me, Sky.
Truth be told, think about the movies 50 Shades of Grey, right?
Right.
It's because it's a lot of people in the BDSM community didn't approve of it because they didn't feel there was enough of a sense of consent
Yes.
in a lot of the situations. But the reason I brought it up is because when we think about BDSM or kink, and let's not even say BDSM necessarily, but being a kinkster or somebody who enjoys kink play, there are so many more people out there who
Yeah.
are either engaged in or have an interest in more than we can even think about.
Yes.
Because you think
Sometimes.
about how many people and how much attention that movie got, and how many women couldn't wait to go and watch the movie, like Housewives. And so everybody's like, they're loving it. And it brought a lot of attention. So even though it may not have been the best um,
Representation.
representation of the community of the lifestyle, it definitely brought to awareness a lot of attention, and it brought to awareness kink play to a lot of people. And little we know, just even what we do in foreplay can be part of kink play.
Right. I
And
mean, we have so many things in the Kink community. We're
part
going to
of
talk
kink
about a
play, yeah.
few of
I'll
them.
give you an example, and again, there's needs of safety. So we talk about temperature play, right? How
Hmm.
many of you have used ice during foreplay?
All the time.
Either to put ice around the nipple
Yes.
or insert ice into the vaginal area, the vaginal canal.
Hmm.
Now, the thing about that is when ice is melting, there are sharp edges to it. So you want to be
Hmm.
careful about that, right?
Right.
You don't want it to melt to a point where there are sharp edges that can potentially damage the soft tissue.
Right.
So again, it's the safety part of it. But
Mm,
we use ice, or think about mint. We use mint in order to increase arousal, that kind of thing. We engage in a little bit of kink play. That's not your norm. That's not your typical vanilla thing. So just think about it and be a little. I'm not asking people to be engaged in, but
right.
just examine oneself and say, just might have
Right.
done this and that. And hmm,
Yeah. Don't overthink it.
just
Give
you never
yourself
know.
a break. One says some would call her Benwinch Coon. Just saying.
That's I think that's in response to the slave lady.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Should I post BDSM on my social media? It's up to you, sir. Your social media, what you do is you.
It's your comfort level. If you
Exactly.
don't care about being judged, which hopefully most of us aren't, you do not
Mm,
care about being judged by others. And even if they do, that's on them. So if you're
right.
comfortable with posting it, absolutely.
Yes.
But let me take that back one more. Let me take a step back. Again, it's
Mhm.
all about safety. When you put out there BDSM, what is your purpose for putting out there BDSM on your social media?
Yeah, that's
Are
what
you
I was
trying
thinking.
to attract people who are engaged in BDSM activities? And if so, are you properly trained and educated in BDSM activities in order for you to play safely? Because I would hate for somebody to put that out there. And let's say I am on your social media and I have an interest, and I'm like, ooh, fine looking dude, and he's into BDSM. Let me hit him up
Mhm.
and find out that you don't know what the hell you're doing and you're going to hurt me, or
Mm,
you act like you know it all and you don't want me to consent. You don't want me to tell
Ooh,
you what's up. And so, yeah, so let's just be
trash,
clear. When you put
trash,
that
trash,
out there,
trash.
what is your intent? And are you prepared
I'm correct.
to be engaged in BDSM activities that are safe? So,
thank
yeah.
you. That's good. Um, Dr. Maggie, you explained something I've experienced over the years. Some of the strongest women I've ever met in life love to be dominated. They always say it feels so good to not have to think. Absolutely. There was a show that I watched forever ago.
Yes.
It was I think it was on Showtime or whatever, but it was all those executive women who were into what do you call that? Escorts. They were escorts, and they didn't do it for the money. They just said they didn't want to be in charge once they left work because they're giving orders all day long and making decisions. So once they leave work and their private spaces, they just wanted to just somebody else giving them orders. So
Exactly.
Charmaine
Exactly.
says, how about just sweet love making? You can do that too.
Like, why
Sweet
do we
love
have to beat each
making
other
is
up? I'm
always
with
welcomed.
Charmaine. Yes, me, and I'm on that tip right there.
I,
Don't
I,
tie
I,
me up.
I, I mean, sometimes you can do sweet love making, but sometimes it's like you need a little play. I mean, that's me. Just like you say, Sky, you don't want to eat spaghetti every day. Yeah. Yes. I don't want a sweet love making every single day or every single time. I want,
You needed to
you know,
spice it up. I got
that,
you.
that's it. It's
I'm with that.
And you just need something different. Sometimes you just need something different. But
yes,
sweet love making is always welcomed. Always. And
yes,
also, that could be part of an afterplay.
exactly. Yep. Is there such a thing as sexual beings? I
We
think
are
so.
all sexual beings. No,
Yeah.
for real. Thank you for the question. Because part of the things I talk about is that in terms of my educational journey, I made sure that I educated myself. I feel like I bring to the table a lot more than some other people do, and it's not a boasting, but I am a nurse, so I have the medical part. I am a therapist, so I have the emotional part, and I'm a clinical sexologist, and I have the sexual part because we are sexual beings. We are physical, emotional, spiritual, and sexual beings. That is an integral part of our fiber. So yes, yes, there are sexual beings.
Is it important to be
I love,
emotionally mature to engage in kink?
I
Absolutely.
love that
It's the most
question. I
important.
love it.
It's a
I love
statement.
it. Now, one, that can be somewhat subjective because some of us may think we are emotionally mature and we're not. And I would say, is it important to be emotionally mature? The answer is yes. But once again, I cannot emphasize enough part of that emotional maturity, especially for men, would be accepting the fact that you have a partner who knows what they want, who have boundaries and who have limits. And when they use their safe words to say, stop the activity, that you respect it and you are willing to stop. So, if that's what
Yes.
you mean by emotional maturity, then the answer is yes. Because I have met people who said, oh, I can do kink. I'm into kink. Yeah, I can do this. Let me whoop you, girl. Let me frog you. I have a cute little frogger too. They love it. So they're like, I can frog you. And I'm like, okay, let's try it. And they are all over the place. I'm
Mhm.
getting whooped in my face, in my boobs, from my like, what
Oh
the hell?
no. No,
And when
no,
I'm like,
no.
stop it. This is not what I want. Like, or they don't even want to use a safe word. Girl, I got you. We don't need a safe word. Run, run, run. Your partner who say we don't need a safe word, run. Because stop doesn't mean stop in kink play, particularly if you're having a role play where it's like somebody is coming after you and you're running from them, and you say, and then when they catch you and you're like, stop, I don't want you to do that. That's part of the role play, right? But
Right.
when you say pumpernickel, they know to stop.
Yeah.
When you say stop, they're not going to stop because it's part of the role play, it's part of the fun. But
Mhm.
then your safe word is pumpernickel, and when you say pumpernickel, all activities stop. So
Yep.
once
Cease and
again,
desist.
Put your safe
totally,
word in the
totally season.
comments. Post your
So
safe
yes, I
word.
would
Let's see
say
what these safe
emotional
words are.
maturity is
Yeah.
necessary. Yes.
I have
um,
always found that some folks who do a lot of kink stuff, not not in the respect of in this format where you signing contracts and all that stuff. I'm just talking about being kinky. I always find that they are less, I hate to use the word good, but like sometimes guys want to do stuff like all this little extra stuff and they don't really want to do the intercourse part good. You know what I'm saying? Like master that shit first to me. And then you could do all this play stuff over here. Like I don't want to play and then when it's time for the real deal, there's nothing, like you're not bringing anything
Anything.
to the
Yeah.
table. You know what I'm saying? I just
Oh, Sky.
that's me. That's how I think. I'm just like all these little extra wheels and bobbles and ice and all that. Okay,
Oh,
that's fine. That's
so,
fun. But what are we
all right.
really doing here?
I totally appreciate what you're saying. And this is your need, right? Your personal need is that a person that you're with, the partner you're with, is able to deliver with penetrative sex, right? Whether it means
That's what
that
we're
they
doing.
are well endowed, or whether it means that they can last a long time, whether it means whatever it means to
Whatever it
you,
is.
whatever it means to you, it's important to you. And I strongly agree that you ought to find a partner who can satisfy your needs.
Oh yeah.
At the
I
same
agree with that.
time, at the same time, I do want to be sensitive to the fact that there are a lot of people out there who are unable to perform for whatever reason, whether it be psychological. I'm talking about male or people, whether you are born as a man or you have male parts or you identify as a male, right? So I want to say that if and when you encounter, or if they encounter some, I don't want people to feel like they are not um, enough, right? And what do I mean by that? So for you, that's a necessary thing. But there are women out there who enjoys the foreplay, who enjoy being able to have so much foreplay that they have the most amazing orgasms. Because most women have clitoral orgasm more than they have penetrative orgasm, right? So a
Mhm.
lot of women do enjoy a lot of that foreplay. And when it comes to the penetrative sex, it is not as important to them.
It might be
So,
just
what,
cherry on top.
pardon?
No, I say it might just be the cherry on top. That's it. But not,
Exactly.
yeah.
And don't forget, if my partner has premature ejaculation or erectile dysfunction, um, or whatever other issues that they, and I don't even want to call it issues, whatever may not be satisfactory to others. But if my partner is unable to perform at that level, but can bring me to amazing orgasm without penetrative play, that might be sufficient for me. So, yes, I totally agree that we should talk about these things. That if penetrative sex is quite important to you, you want to make sure your partner understands that and they present to you well. Don't say, I'm well endowed. Girl, I got you. I'm going to take you down.
Yeah, that
Oh, Lord have
that is
mercy. And then
unnecessary.
when they get there and it's like,
Nothing.
what?
Womp
And
womp.
it's okay. And
Not a
no, it
damn
is
thing.
okay. It is okay. It is okay to not have a big penis because, especially the longer it is, the bigger it hurts. Can I say it again? It hurts. So for a lot of men with the largest penis, they don't get a lot of play, y'all. So that's not the most important thing. But then you also have men who have medical issues. I don't want you to feel like you're not enough because there are other ways that you can satisfy a woman to and bring her to orgasm if that's what she wants. Because let's not forget, the end of all is not always orgasm, it's pleasure. I
Yes.
may have a whole hour of pleasure and never climax, and I am happy. So we have to understand when it comes to sexuality, we are all very different. And
Mm.
what we're looking for is very different. It varies from one person to the next. So I do appreciate it. I don't want to minimize what you're saying, Sky, but I want to answer it in a way that for you that is important and you communicate that to a partner. Don't come and pretend that they got all these things and get you all excited, and then when they show up they can't perform, not because they have performance anxiety, which can happen and we can work with that, but because they have a micro penis. That also happens. We do have people with micro penis, which is usually 3 inches or 3 inches or less, right?
Mhm.
Anything 3 inches and above, believe it or not, is normal. But people want to, because the vaginal canal is not that deep. Although we can tolerate it, it doesn't mean that anyway. So I'm going away from all this.
We have a lot to talk about.
You
But you have to
might
There's
also
a lot.
win that race.
Understand the anatomy. So I say that to say, please, please, please don't feel that you are not enough. Don't feel lesser than if you do not have the capability to satisfy a woman because of your girth, because of your length, because of your ability to last more than a certain amount of time. Because there are many other ways you can satisfy her and she will still be happy because she has clitoral stimulation. And if she desires penetration, you yourself can use a dildo on her. You can use a toy to bring her to that next level if you cannot do it yourself. A lot of women are okay with that. And those who are not your partner. They are not your perfect fit. Or it doesn't even have to be perfect. Let me refrain from using that word. They're not a good fit for
compatibility.
you
Well,
because there
you
are
know, that's
so
why
many.
polyamory is a thing because you can have multiple partners that satisfy
Yes,
different needs.
But
yes,
I feel like that's another thing that we have to unlearn as a society is putting a price tag on how big the man is,
Mhm.
or how long they can last, because like you said, Dr. Maggie, I have had great experiences that did not involve penetrative sex. And it's just, I guess it's a matter of preference. Everybody's good in my book as long as we can establish what is gonna be pleasurable for us. I think that's truly what matters. But I mean, if you're gonna be the porn star in my life, you better deliver like a porn star. So, don't pretend like you want and you're not.
Right, right. It's how they present. And there's so much pressure on our men in particular. So much pressure. Society puts so much pressure out there on what a man is supposed to be like, what they're supposed to look like. You're supposed to have a big penis. You're supposed to this. You're supposed to that. You're supposed to last 40 minutes. Dude, it doesn't really work that way. And there are some people who have mastered it, but it requires some skills like know how to move around. Are you able to pull out and go back in so that you don't ejaculate? Can you withhold ejaculation so you can last longer? That kind of stuff. But it still doesn't even require a huge penis because a lot of the times, even with penetration, it's because the clitoris is rubbing against something. There's a friction there. Now, it doesn't mean penetrative sex doesn't bring you to orgasm, to climax,
Right.
but frequently, especially ladies, think about it, right? When he's actually done and he has had an orgasm, he's ejaculated and he's a little bit soft, and you're still there, it feels amazing.
Yes, it does. It
When
sure does.
it's soft, it feels amazing. So, guys, it's not always about the big penis. That's all
Right.
I'm going to say. Okay.
Yes. All right. So we're gonna read a couple more of the comments, and then so we can jump into the connection for BDSM and polyamory. Because I'm like, we're like over an hour already, but this conversation is so good. We can't just leave. So let's do the next comment. Doc, what is your experience level? What have you experienced? What are your expectations? What are you looking to experience? And what are your hard limits? That's rather personal.
Pretty
It
much.
is. It is.
Pretty
So,
much.
I thank you for the question. And I want to be, so I guess I'm being politically correct in the way that I'm going to be responding because I am here on a professional platform. It's going to be really hard to answer that question the way that you're asking. But in the beginning, I did state that I am trained, I have had it in my studies. So, in terms of my experience level, I have had the educational background in BDSM and kink and other aspects of sexuality. I have visited dungeons. I make it a point to to continue to go to workshops and conferences so I can stay educated about the community. So, what is my expectation? My expectation is that every one of you who's out there listening to this podcast, make it your own, but most importantly, practice safe kink play. That would be my primary expectation. Are there other things I want to experience? The world is wide and open. I'm always open to not just experiencing, but most importantly, learning. I am always learning. I'm always, so a part of my experience is the learning part. So going to places, meeting up with you all, learning from you is part of what I want to continue to do as my experience. And I hope that answered your question.
Yay. Dr. Maggie's a boss.
Thank you for that.
Many, if not most people, are culturally oppressed when it comes to sex, and conversation is often by default sex is engaged in. Is that true?
Yeah,
Hmm.
I agree. I don't know about you all. I'll let you
I
go
mean,
first.
Yes. I agree with that. That's why, like I said, we have to unlearn so many things that we have been taught, and a lot of people are even afraid to have those conversations because then there's the possibility that there's something that is different from what they believe in. I'm not saying it's necessarily what they believed was a lie or anything like that. It's just for anything to be different, they can't fathom that or they can't accept it. So they would rather not have the conversation at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I can tell you, when to talk about culturally oppressed, Abdullah, when I decided to become a clinical sexologist, now my parents are on board now, and they would be listening to this. They'd be fine with my response. But let me tell you, they were so embarrassed. I'm from I'm of Haitian background. I was born and raised in Haiti, although predominantly I was raised in Boston. So you guys got a little bit of something personal about me now.
Yes.
Um, but my parents, being Haitian, can I tell you, they kept telling people that I was studying to become a psychologist. They kept saying I'm becoming a psychologist. I'm like, no, I am not going to school to become a psychologist. But they're like, well, it's in the field of psychology. Yes, it is. But I'm becoming a clinical sexologist, y'all. And they just really had a hard time telling people that. And that goes to show you just how culturally oppressed we are and how taboo the conversation is. And for most of us, I would say a lot of us, maybe not most of us, but a lot of us, our career path is a representation of our own personal life a lot of the times. And I can say that that is true for me. Becoming a clinical sexologist is because of my own personal interest. I definitely never had the conversation about the birds and the bees. That is a definite no no.
Many of us.
I had children at a very early age. And I used to watch, and I think I had an interest and a curiosity at an extremely early age since I was in Haiti. So even when I came here as a young adult, we used to have Dr. Roof on various platforms,
Yes.
and I fell in love with this woman and I wanted to become her, and I didn't know how to become Dr.
Oh,
Ruth.
yes, you are
So
Dr.
throughout
Ruth
my whole adult life, I
2.0.
did everything I could to figure it out. And I finally did. That meant I had to be a sexologist, right? But also with my own children, it became clear to me I didn't want them to be raised the way that I was raised with absolutely no knowledge, especially when my daughter was in the third grade. And I've said that on many platforms, but when my daughter was in the third grade, she came home and talked to me about what they were learning in school, but it wasn't quite school, that a man's penis can be 12 inches long when erected. I'm like, where the hell did you hear that? My back was against the wall. I didn't know how to answer it because I didn't have these conversations with my parents. How am I going to have them with my kids? So I bought books, how to have the talk with your children, age appropriate talk with your kids. And there are times it's too early in my world. If they talk about it, it's not too early.
It's not too early.
Yourself as parents, definitely make it age appropriate. But that was the beginning of my journey to wanting to make sure that we talk about sex, that it's not tabooed, and that my kids are not going to hear it from children on the bus who don't know what the heck they're talking about.
Exactly. I agree. So, the next thing we're going to take just a few minutes to talk about it. Are people who are into BDSM or kinks, are they all polyamorous, or are there any monogamous kinksters out there? And how does the BDSM world merge with polyamory, or how do they complement each other?
Okay, so from what I've come to learn and understand or what I've also witnessed, is that there is not. So first and foremost, to answer your question about are they all poly, the answer is no. A lot of people practice kink play in their bedroom, in their private lives, one on one. They are engaged in various kink play in their home. They never attend a play party. They've never gone to a dungeon. They've never invited anybody into their bedrooms. So yes, they can be totally, totally monogamous.
Do you hear that, people? Just hear that.
Within the community, because when it comes to like playing, and it's always again consensual, when it comes to playing at a play party or at a sex club or a dungeon, frequently you have people playing with one another. It still does not mean that they are poly. It could also just mean that they are in open relationships or they are swingers. So it doesn't mean poly just because a
Swingers are
husband is
poly
present.
though.
Pardon?
Swingers are polyamorous.
Who?
Swingers are poly in
No,
a
they're
yes,
not.
they are. They
Yes,
don't
they are.
always.
Polyamory is the umbrella that polyamory is an umbrella
It has
term where
become.
swingers are underneath it.
It has
What we
become that,
solar
Sky.
poly, polygamy, all of that falls under the umbrella of ethical non-monogamy, which is also
Ethical non.
Ethical
Thank you for that word.
non-monogamy,
That's
not
where I was going to go with
polyamorous.
it.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
That's where I was going to go with it. Ethical non-monogamy. I I have had clients and friends who are polyamorous and they're not engaged in swinging. And
Exactly.
vice versa. I have had people who are into swinging, but they are not open to sharing their partners on a long-term relationship, to have
Or
long-term relationship with
emotional,
another.
because a
They
lot
do
of
not want
swingers,
the
they're just physical.
absolutely not. Absolutely. And that's why I said no originally.
Mhm.
Because a lot of my poly from people that I've encountered, they are not open to having someone, a third person or a fourth person, be in engaged in another committed, loving relationship with another person,
Exactly.
which typically exists within the polyamorous community.
Right.
So as a result, they may not classify themselves as polyamorous because they're not open to it.
Mhm. I feel
So
like the worlds they can intertwine, but it's not always
they
intersecting.
can
They can, but it's not
agree.
a must because polyamory is here and swinging is here. And like I said, and we've had a whole episode on that because most of the time swingers don't want you. They don't want their partners falling in love with somebody else. That's where
Mhm.
they start having issues. It's like, no, you can do this, or you can't have sex with no barriers with this person. I mean, they have rules rather than boundaries a lot of
Do.
times,
They do. Me too. You're right. I'll give you an example. And thinking about Farah's question about give an example, I'll give you an example of a couple that I had. So they are swingers, and they had a third person that they brought into their bedroom, and they were playing. They play here and there, and it just so happened that the female partner ended up being very attracted to the other partner who was also female, right? The person they brought into their bedroom. And it's an understanding that yes, we can play together, but you and the other person cannot play without my
separate.
knowledge
Yep.
because I'm not approving of it. So
Right.
these two women started meeting outside of the third party. They're no longer now a trio. They started meeting, they started talking, they really like each other, and they're playing with one another without the husband. That
Mm,
created a serious problem in the
problem.
relationship.
exactly.
Serious,
Because
serious
that's
problem.
cheating, and
So
they
it's
So
not,
that
people don't think about that.
there's a whole show on Tubi about that. It's called Us.
Oh, really?
Exactly the same thing you just said.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So
so
it can be a problem because, again, that's not part of the agreement. So
agreement.
swingers don't always want. The first swinger couple that I ever interviewed when I was in school, um, one of the things they do takeovers, right? And the wife one time was they were at some place and the guy was in a hot tub with this woman and he was kissing up on her. She said that those are the stories I'm getting. He's kissing up on her and very intimate and whatever. And she's on the sideline watching all of this, right? And they got home and there was a problem. Why was there a problem? She was, and jealousy can still be there. We have to work with it. But
Right.
she was like, you don't kiss up on me in that way. When you are with me, I don't see you being as intimate. I don't see you being as passionate. So they didn't have a conversation about the do's and don'ts, unfortunately. Like what is acceptable, how much of it, what is your limit, what can you tolerate? But
Mhm.
it was not okay. It just was not okay that you do certain things with another partner that you're not doing with me. And no, you cannot have an emotional connection because that's not okay with me. Whereas
Right.
in poly, emotional connections are okay.
Right.
So
So let me ask you a question. Do you have a website?
I do. It's for my professional website. It is Bonet Counseling. So it would be www.bonetcounseling. It's BONNET counseling.com. People can also find me on Psychology Today.
Psychology.
Yeah. So in Psychology Today would be my full name, which is Marguerite. But
Okay.
I prefer Maggie. So typically you'll see Maggie Bonet. Most
Psychologytoday.com.
Yeah, I do have social media, but I do not keep up with them, so people don't even go in there. My social media handles are completely blank. My office manager is constantly on me to update it. I have not made the time, so I'm sorry. One of these
It's
days
all
I
right.
will. Because I have a lot of amazing things, like when you go to these sex museums and you want to share all the things you've gone and learn about. I could do that on my social media platforms, but I haven't. So I'll get there one of
Okay.
these days.
It's a lot.
So in the
One
meantime, yeah,
day.
one of these days.
Yes.
What is the best way for folks to reach you? Through your website?
Yes, it would be through my website.
Okay.
Um,
Sounds good.
yeah, bonetcounseling.com. And I mean, if a person is looking for an appointment, they can also call my office and talk to my and again, let's be real, let's keep it professional. It
Yes.
would be we are talking about calling me because you want an appointment with me, um, or a consultation. So that
Mm-hmm.
number would be 404
Mm-hmm.
490
Mm-hmm.
2058.
Got it.
Mhm. Thank you, ma'am. Well, this has been such an amazing conversation.
There's
Thanks
one
so much.
question that popped up. One question.
Oh, sorry.
What's the difference between rough sex and BDSM, the toys?
So again, I BDSM is so broad. It is so broad. Rough sex could be part of it. I have a friend who is a hardcore sadist. He'll tell you in a heartbeat. And when we talk about safety, that's one of the things. When you have a sadist who is hardcore, they have to really check themselves to make sure that they know the balance between roughness and also implementing gentleness and kindness. Okay. So, rough sex can be part of a sadist act. So, when you talk about BDSM and rough sex, it may not necessarily be a difference. It's also not about the toys. Anything when you talk about hardcore sex has to be with roughness, however she likes it, if that's how she or he likes it. So let's not just be like, I'm going to bang the out of you
Right.
and you're doing this and the person is hurting and they didn't
They don't
approve, they
care.
did not consent. So it
Right.
can be considered part of a kink play in terms of BDSM because sadists are hardcore people who enjoy inflicting pain. So when it comes to penetrative sex, a sadist will have hardcore sex. But you also want to make sure that as a sadist, if you like rough sex or inflicting pain or giving it to this woman rough, or this guy rough, that you also understand that there is a balance to also implement kindness and gentleness in your practice. I hope that answered your question. So it's not necessarily a difference. If you're talking about rough sex, if I was to give a difference, it's like you're really roughing her up or roughing him up without consent. And so the difference between that and BDSM is that you're roughing them up with consent.
Consent.
Okay.
There
We'll
it
take
is.
one more question before we go because it's late.
Here it
Um,
is.
Oh, wow.
Oh, sorry.
what's it called of some if someone likes being called names like sluts, etc.?
That is humiliation play. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yes,
That
thanks
one is a
for
hard one for
doing
people. Humiliation play is interesting and it can be somewhat therapeutic. But in humiliation play, just like everything else, it has to be consensual. Also, too, you have to know your partner in humiliation play because slut shaming to me is fine. I'll call myself a slut. I'm a self-proclaimed slut. In fact, there are a lot of women out there who are like, call
Yes,
me a slut. If you call me a slut, it'll be like, thank you.
thank
So
you,
you're
sir.
not humiliating me. But if a person likes to be called a slut, it could simply basically mean they enjoy humiliation play. Humiliation play can involve just calling a person, hey, your bitch, your slut, or whatever it is that you think might be humiliating and embarrassing to them. But it's not just verbal, it also is physical. It could be like, I want you to lick somebody's boots. I want you to walk around with a collar on your neck. So anything that you think might shame or humiliate the person, again, keep in mind the basis of BDSM is power and control. It's power play. I'm relinquishing power and you're taking control of me based on what I tell you I want. So I want you to call me a slut. I say I want you to call me a slut. You damn well better call me a slut. So
Exactly. It's a little badge of honor.
Boom. Well, I think we have concluded tonight's podcast. This has been really interesting.
Yes, this was a
Thank
great,
you.
great show. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Dr. Maggie, for saying yes. So we just met, and I was like, "Oh, we got to talk about
I
this."
know. I'll be honest. I was like, oh my gosh, now this week, today, I didn't prepare because I have this tendency to like, I over prepare. I have to have all the terminologies and I have to do my research. I have to prepare a PowerPoint. I have to.
No
No, let's
such
just
thing with
talk.
us.
Let's just talk. I
It's a
appreciate your
conversation.
audience. You guys provided me a safe platform where
Thank
I felt welcomed and I'm able to just openly talk and feel like it was received. So thank you and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys
Thank
for joining
you.
us tonight. Remember to follow us, the Poly Pimps, on all social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and share the information with your friends. Don't forget, don't be selfish. You don't need to be selfish on this one. Just share with your friends and anybody who could benefit from our information. As always, the Poly Pimps will be here in another couple of weeks to bring you some more fun stuff. Thank you, Sky. It
Can
was
I ask you one quick question? Are people able to view this after the
good.
fact or is it only during the live? Okay.
It's on YouTube, it's on Facebook Live. Like they can find it on any of our pages.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. Thank you guys. Have a great night and we will see you soon.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye.
Yeah.